14th meeting of the Todd Kentucky Sanitation Agency Board of Directors. And everyone could join me in the pledge of allegiance. That'd be great.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, do you want to do roll call?
Director Wilson?
Yes.
Director Smelser?
Yes.
Director Cox?
Yes.
Director Tresson?
Yes.
And President Wilkins.
Present. Okay, next on the agenda, or first on the agenda, is public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any items not on the agenda for up to 5 minutes. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Move on to professional achievements, awards, and anniversaries. Vicki.
Good morning, President Wilkins and members of the board. Vicki Lufrano, Human Resources Administrator. As we do on a monthly basis, I would like to acknowledge several staff for anniversaries, awards, and achievements. And first up, I would like to congratulate Paul Schaus with his 5-year anniversary. Likewise, I would also like to congratulate Scott Fleming for his 5-year anniversary. We did announce that last month, but he was not at the meeting. And then additionally wanted to congratulate several employees for their safety award suggestions that were received by the safety committee. And those 3 individuals are Herbie Hodges, Jeff Nabby, and Joel Oberly. So not sure if everyone's here or not, but congratulations on all of those. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks for, what are we at, over 10 years now since we've had a lost time injury? It's incredible. So, thanks to everyone for your commitment to safety. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for public comment related to the board's consideration of adopting a resolution of the board adopting the 2023-2024 tax roll billing report and approving billing and collection of delinquent charges on the county tax roll. Let's handle this one. Crystal.
Yes. This is just to, we have to have a public hearing on it and a public notice for being able to put the delinquent charges on the tax roll. And this is the public hearing part. The resolutions will be later.
Okay, and this public hearing would cover placing these charges on the tax roll in all 3 counties that we provide service in?
Yes.
Okay.
For the delinquencies.
I'm sorry?
For the delinquencies.
For the delinquencies, okay.
Of the 2022 year.
Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and open the public hearing for any comments on this item. Any comments on this item or the board? All right, seeing none, let the record reflect we opened the public hearing and we have now closed the public hearing. And I believe the next action would be for the board to go ahead and adopt the resolution.
The resolutions are later.
So that's later.
This is the public hearing.
Yeah, they'll be in.
Okay, so there's no action associated with this item.
And correction, this is the 2023-2024 tax roll billing report and approving the delinquencies. Sorry about that.
Right. So let the record reflect we've conducted the public hearing. There's no further action at this time. We'll have action later in the agenda regarding adopting the respective resolutions. Okay, next is the consent calendar. Does any member of the board wish to pull any items from consent? Seeing none, does anyone from staff wish to pull any items?
Staff does not wish to pull any items.
Okay. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve consent?
So moved. I'll second.
Motioned by Director Cox, seconded by Director Smelser. Is there any member of the public who want to pull anything from consent? Seeing none, Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed.
Motion approved.
Motion approved. Okay, next is discussion of employee health benefits. You take the lead on this?
I'm going to open and then I'll turn it over to Vicki for a presentation on today. So, at the request of the Finance Committee, we placed the item on today's agenda to have a discussion about the health benefits and the possibility of doing an 80-20 with a co-insurance plan. We did have an all-staff meeting yesterday. Staff has given me a couple items they'd like me to share. As you see, we have many of the staff is in attendance, so there may be some desire from staff to speak at the public comment portion of it.
Yeah, and I just say, when the time comes, please don't be bashful or try not to feel intimidated about providing input. If you've got comments for us, we'll try to make it as comfortable as possible for you to receive those so we can hear you.
And we had a fairly good open dialogue yesterday, which was really nice, and I appreciate staff sharing their thoughts, concerns, and opinions on the topic. I printed out a letter that was provided to me, and they asked me to read. I've given all of you a copy. Since I committed to reading it to staff, I'd like to go ahead and do that. Dear Board of Directors, from the discussions about changes to the health insurance offered to employees last year, it appears evident that equity of health benefits across local agencies is the driving factor in the proposed changes and not so much cost savings. It was stated last year that TTSA is the only agency that offers a 90-10 plan compared with the member districts. While it may be true that TTSA uniquely has a 90-10 health insurance plan, there are many benefits that other district staff have that TTSA staff do not. One example would be that certain member districts start new employees with more hours of vacation time than TTSA staff. Another example of districts having special benefits is the accrual of administrative leave for carpooling and other environmentally friendly modes of commuting to work. A final example of the differences is employees of a member district received a 7% COLA in 2022 and a 6% in 2023, while TTSA staff received a 5.6 and a 4.8 respectively. Due to more generous COLAs, salaries at member districts are surpassing many of those at TTSA, despite TTSA being charged with more complex and inherently dangerous processes, as well as more education and certification requirements in which the salaries no longer reflect. Despite additional benefits offered to member districts, the health benefits of TTSA employees have again become a focus for cost savings. We would like to thank Director Cox for being truthful in last year's discussion when he said this was the start of the erosion of our benefits. Contrary to being told we were being made whole last year, everyone who elected the gold plan saw a significant reduction in funds being deposited in their HRA accounts. It has been alluded to us as staff that we may no longer have access to the first platinum plan and will likely see the loss of the incentive to be on the 80-20 plan and possibly our deductible. Even if the agency chooses to supplement the co-insurance from 10 to 20% as discussed with staff yesterday, it doesn't answer many questions about other coverages or other coverage differences between the platinum and gold plans. It appears that regardless of what changes are made by the board, there will be a significant reduction in the benefits offered to staff. Director Cox was right. This is now year 2 of the erosion of our benefits. Will this be an annual event? In addition, it is well known to staff that during the latest classification and compensation study, it's stated that our salary determinations assume that the agency is paying the employee's portion of CalPERS pension dues. We ask the board to consider the results of the impending classification and compensation study before making any rush decisions to change, reduce our health benefits that we depend on to take care of our families. If changes must be made by the board for equity across member districts, we ask that all factors of total compensation are considered along with the complexity of the wastewater treatment plant and the special requirements in contrast to collection districts. Personal bias on the part of the board is a serious concern to us as well. Recruitment, employee retention, and morale will be greatly impacted by this push to reduce our benefits. We don't feel that the board has the best interests of TTSA TTSA's employees in mind when these changes are being proposed. Please reconsider your plan to reduce our health coverage benefits, and in parentheses for current employees and retired employees. Sincerely, staff. It was anonymous, but I assume that several staff worked together to draft this document. Additionally, when we met, there were some bullet points that came out of the staff meeting that I'd like to share. One item that came up was the question, can we have an agreement with the board to not revisit benefits for a certain number of years? Employees want continued deductible lump sum, maybe in lieu of reimbursement or as part of the reimbursement. Employees like the cost share to incentivize going to gold plan. It helps to offset other costs for benefits like orthodontia and other items that aren't covered by the health care. Employees would like to consider other benefits including COLA, salaries, vacation accruals, and classic retirement, the 8% share. Partake in a class and comp study before changing any benefits. HRA funds are very important, and most staff feel strongly about this one benefit. Why is changing benefits such a priority? Meaning, is there a shortfall or something similar happening? What is the goal? Same level or better vision benefits, and I'll touch on that one in just a sec. Make the class comp retroactive if benefits get eroded now. So in other words, if a change is made and the class and comp identifies, backdate that class and comp to January 1 of 2024, and then look into the possibility of a two-tier coverage system for new employees where it would maintain the existing employees' coverage. To touch on the vision, one thing that Vicki and I have been working on is looking as a cost savings measure, look at vision insurance versus our reimbursement program that we do. So we floated that to staff to let them know we were looking at that and get a feel for where, whether they really liked the idea or if there was a big opposition to it. So that was what that comment was regarding. So I've shared all the things I think that came out. I hope staff, if I missed anything, I'll take the opportunity to talk with you guys today, knowing that you're open to hear what they have to say. With that, I'll turn it over to Vicki, and she has a presentation to touch on some of the numbers and projections of the rate increase for gold and platinum, et cetera.
Good morning again, President Wilkins and directors. So TTSA offers employee benefits including medical, dental, vision, HRA, and many more as are listed here on the screen. We see increases in benefit costs annually, and these costs are generally reviewed by the board, hence our time here today. As you're aware, we are contracted with CalPERS for medical benefits. CalPERS announces their rate changes in July of each year to be effective in January of the following year. We're anxiously awaiting the rate changes from CalPERS, but we have initially been told that those rate changes will likely be between 12 to 13%. TTSA currently contracts for the PERS Platinum plan with CalPERS, but employees may opt into the PERS Gold plan and also receive a lump sum amount into their HRA as a result. That's for 2023 current benefits. CalPERS open enrollment will occur September 18th through October 13th of this year. TTSA attempts to offer our own open enrollment during a similar time frame, but we are allowed to set our own dates within reason. Any benefit changes would need to be known prior to the open enrollment beginning so that staff can be notified, retirees can be notified, and the benefits broker can prepare their software to accommodate any changes we might have. As you may be aware from last year, we do have a benefits broker that performs our open enrollment for us so that we get an electronic version of any changes in the plans for each employee. Additionally, any contractual changes would need to be made with CalPERS in advance of them becoming effective. And again, we'd need to have time to communicate those to staff as well as retirees prior to open enrollment. One item to note that's not included in the slides here and Richard touched on it a little bit as an employee comment. It's related to the employee retirement of Classic versus Pepra employees. We now have slightly tipped the scales in that we have a few more or just slightly over the number of Pepra employees versus Classic. Any Classic employees hired after April 1st, 2021 pay the employee share of retirement. We now have 3 employees that are in that category. Classic retirement increased effective the beginning of fiscal year 23-24 by 1.5%, and Pepra increased by 1%, but that was mostly absorbed by the Pepra employees. Nearly half of our Classic employees will be within retirement age within the next 2 to 3 years. And as we review the rest of our benefits here in a minute, we should consider this, that many Classic employees are within retirement age as it relates to recruitment and retention. Or please do. Okay, so as you see, we have many benefits. As I mentioned, health, dental, vision, the HRA, many other benefits, some of them being optional, but most of them being paid by the employer. As it relates to our health plan, I would just like to mention a couple of items of interest. I know that's really small, but I would like to mention a couple of items that are different between the PERS Platinum versus PERS Gold plan. A couple of those being the deductible, which are listed there, the out-of-pocket limits, hospitalization. There are a few others that I'm not going to mention, but significantly the skilled nursing and network providers. Skilled nursing for the Platinum plan offers 180 days paid within the facility, where the PERS Gold plan offers 100 days. And the network of providers within the PERS Platinum plan provides for over 66,000 providers, 427 hospitals, and 633 ambulatory surgery centers, where the PERS Gold plan offers 43,000 providers, 419 hospitals, and an unspecified amount of ambulatory surgery centers.
Hey Vicki,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, just in my experience with this, what is usually most important is what regional service providers are covered in each plan. Do we know, like in terms of the Reno hospitals, Forest, kind of the stuff that's kind of within that area that most employees would likely be using? Do we have any idea how this comparison stacks up?
I do not have that data available at my fingertips, but I could get that data for at least for our next meeting. I did contact Anthem yesterday to try to get a copy of those 2 network plans, being the Prudent Buyer plan as well as the Select PPO or the PPU. That's supposed to be PPO, Preferred Provider Plan. They're not able to provide those to us. Rather, they do suggest that we go online and do just a search of individual doctors or individual facilities. So I did not have time to do that yesterday. Okay, the next slide. As it relates to our current enrollment, again, this is really small and I apologize, but for 2023 versus 2024, it's really hard to compare because we don't know exactly what the rates are going to do and we don't know exactly what people will enroll in. But currently we have, and I should mention here, even though I have PERS Gold listed under the Nevada CalPERS plans, PERS Gold is only available to employees living out of state if they use the employer's zip code. So I still broke them out, even though it really is a California plan. Nonetheless, we currently have enrolled in our plans. We have 27 individuals in a family plan, 13 in a 2-party plan, and 10 in a single plan. Of those numbers, we have 18 enrolled in Platinum and 32 enrolled in Gold. If all employees remained in the same plans and assuming a 13% increase on the Platinum and the Gold plans, and again, we don't know those numbers exactly yet, if everyone remained the same, we would see approximately $150,000 increase in our medical benefits for next year. As it relates to our dental plan, just very quickly, I want to just mention, again, these are very small, and I believe you guys have a copy of this in front of you. Maybe not the slideshow, but the actual memo. So regarding the dental plan, our current annual costs are approximately $88,000 annually for all employees. That includes 2 board of directors. The vision plan, we did a 5-year total cost for each fiscal year. Our benefits actually run on a calendar year, but we did a fiscal year number. And you can see generally our vision expenses have been increasing annually, and to a point where they're approximately $20,000 annually. We did reach out to our benefits broker, who indicated to us that it was very likely they could provide us with a fully insured plan at an approximate cost of $12,000. They are performing an RFP right now on our behalf just to get some look into the providers, see exactly what the cost would be, the level of benefits, the provider list, all of that kind of stuff. So something to consider for next year. As it relates to our HRA plan, as you may or may not remember, last year we talked about, we did make a change to the cost share. So any employee that decided to go into the gold plan as opposed to the platinum plan, they did receive a cost share. In addition, all employees, regardless of the plan that they enrolled in, would receive the amount equivalent to their deductible, which was also placed into an HRA. So based on those numbers, you can see, generally speaking, that the total cost of those amounts combined was approximately $147,000 for an annual amount for 2023. And I would like to note, and this is something that Richard mentioned, but it seemed to be a pretty significant theme yesterday when we held our staff meeting, and that many employees expressed a great interest in continuing to receive that deductible amount into their HRA, and if the cost share would be considered, that was greatly helpful to a lot of employees that enrolled into the gold plan, where they mentioned that they enrolled in the gold plan in order to get that cost share because it helped with other benefit costs, including the orthodontia, vision expenses, and even though we have a vision plan, some additional vision expenses, stuff like that. Next up, we have our life insurance, which is an approximate annual cost of $50,000. Cost of the state disability, California state disability. As you may or may not remember, the employees pay for the cost of the state disability. It comes out of their paycheck, and then TTSA reimburses that amount into their HRA account, and the annual cost of that was approximately $58,000, or will be by the end of the calendar year. We have the retiree health coverage. Again, as you may or may not remember, we moved from basically a kind of no retirement, I shouldn't say no retirement plan. It was, there were certain qualifiers that allowed employees to be eligible for the retirement plan, or the retiree health plan, which were you had to be of minimum age to retire from CalPERS. You had to have a minimum of 5 years in TTSA, and basically if you retired with those qualifying pieces in place, that you were able to qualify for the retiree health. We have now moved, effective, I believe, August 1st, 2021, we adopted a vesting schedule. This is TTSA's vesting schedule, which follows the state vesting schedule. Employees hired after that date of August 1st, 2021 would need to qualify for the retiree health, meeting those criteria. which would be at a minimum working 5 years here at TTSA and a minimum of 10 years in a public agency, California public agency, to qualify for 50% and more than 20 years for 100%. Currently, we have 56 retirees enrolled in our retiree health plan. That has an approximate annual cost of $915,000. So talking about a timeline as we look at making any possible changes in our benefits. Yesterday, as you're aware, we met with staff just to have a general discussion about benefits and what that might mean. Today we're in our board meeting talking about just basically presenting the benefits as they are right now, and going to have a discussion about what that might mean for the future of our benefits here at TTSA. We're anticipating bringing this item forward again next month at the board meeting, assuming that is the direction of the board, for a final decision, hopefully for a final decision. That part's pretty important because that would mean open enrollment starts on September 18th or approximately September 18th. We would need to communicate any kind of changes to staff, retirees possibly, as well as our benefits brokers, so that they could get their software prepared for the beginning of our open enrollment. Any changes that we may make in the health contract with CalPERS would need to be, would require us putting a new contract on file with CalPERS, and that takes a little bit of time, but it would just have to be effective January 1st. However, we would want CalPERS to know about that so that they could communicate that to any retirees that might look into our benefits, because that would affect them. So
2021 up there? You mean 2024?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I did go through this really quickly, so I do apologize for a few errors that I even saw that you guys didn't point out in there. Anyway, that's basically the information I had to provide. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board? A lot of information, yeah. I guess I'm trying to understand. I've been a board member, I don't know exactly how long now, but I think there's been changes over time, and just trying to understand those. I know that I think when I came on the board, the district provided platinum. There was no, it was called CARE. I don't know that there was any incentive for folks to go to the choice at that point, so everybody was automatically enrolled in the 90-10 plan. Were there additional kind of contributions to a health savings or HRA contributions at that time to employees, or was it just simply you were provided with the 90-10 plan and there were no additional kind of health contributions? And then I don't know what that originally was. I know that we then transitioned to providing this cost share, so that because there was such a big difference between the cost of the 90-10 plan and the 80-20 plan, which the benefits for a healthy person are pretty much the same, but the cost savings were significant to the district. And so we said, people went to this 80-20, save the district money, we would provide some incentive for that, share the split the differences. But then we found after a year of doing that folks that lived in, I think, Nevada who did that, we ended up actually between the cost share and the cost of the gold plan, we were spending more than the platinum plan to begin with. And so then the second year we ended up changing that formula a little bit. And I think even more folks then realized the advantages of going to the gold plan with those cost share numbers that you just shared. But I was trying to just ratchet it back to, 3 years ago or something like that, when all we contracted with was for the 90-10 plan. Was there I'm just not familiar whether there was some additional monies through an HRA or a health savings plan that employees also received.
I understand the value of that for, you mentioned orthodontia or other health issues that may come up that aren't covered by the health insurance.
Yes. So to answer your question, yes. Since I've been here, so at least in the past 5 years, TTSA has always provided into an HRA account the amount equivalent to the deductible of the plan that is chosen by the employee. And I would say for the first 2 years, yes, there were first 2 and then 3 plans that were provided. First it was PERS Care and PERS Choice so probably going back 5 years ago. 4 years ago, they added the Select plan, which is now known as the Gold plan. Year 3 of the 5 years going back, they dropped the Choice plan and changed the name, so it just became PERS Platinum and PERS Gold. At that time, yes, there was a significant difference between the cost of PERS Platinum and PERS Gold, and that is when the agency incentivized only employees living within California that they could go into the PERS Gold plan and receive the cost share. The following year, we did more research and realized that employees that lived out of state could utilize the agency's zip code and be eligible for the PERS Gold plan, and that CalPERS allowed that to happen. And then that cost share became a little bit less, and it was still a 50% split at that time. So those 2 years, 50% split in the cost savings, and then this past year made it so that it was just a lump sum amount, but it was provided to the employee at the beginning of the year rather than as the year went on and the cost savings was realized, which is what we had done the previous 2 years.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I guess, what we're being tasked with is it's both providing employees with good health care at a cost-effective means of doing it, and so it I don't know, it gets pretty nitty-gritty, and I don't know that we can play all the numbers. The question would be, if we continued with, I don't know that we can go back a couple slides.
Sure, what would you like to see?
The one that showed the kind of probably those HRAs, where it showed, I think right now, zoom in on that gold, where we're providing, the deductible plus some cost share numbers. And I guess, like I said, I think we had additional employees actually when we went to that, which was less than the benefit we were providing the previous year, but we had actually more people even transfer from Platinum to Gold. If we continued, I guess, I'd like to know what the district cost is if we just stuck with Platinum for everybody versus, Gold for everybody plus Gold with this sort of deductible and cost share, and just look at what those overall costs are to the agency. That option that we provided folks to go to Gold with a increased reimbursement for the higher deductible plus an additional cost share. I'd be curious as to how that compares to what the Platinum plan is.
Okay.
And I'm curious to hear from staff, and I'm just one board member, if we, went with requiring basically the district contracts with Gold and we provided that benefit that you see up there, what the reaction is. I appreciate the letter and all that, but I'm just curious what that would be. I could see that, if we went to Platinum to Gold with no deductible or cost share, that is a serious clawback in benefits. I'm not trying to claw back in benefits. I'm just trying to be smart with the district money to provide the benefit. If this was something that you were paying out of your own pocket, I think you would probably be doing the same analysis. You know, how can you not pay these exorbitant health insurance, get one that's cost effective and, you know, still get the same benefit, but for a more cost effective means. So I'd be curious to hear feedback, and if there are people that would have serious concerns about losing platinum if they went to gold with deductible reimbursement and you know, some level of cost sharing as well. And again, I don't know that even makes sense, because I don't know that we have the numbers yet to say that if we did that for everybody, you know, where does that really put the district? Does that save the agency money to do that? I would run the numbers on the new platinum or gold rates.
That was going to be my question. Yeah. Okay. So wait for the.
A little bit theoretical at this point.
But you have something to say, Bill?
I was afraid last year when we discussed this, that this was what's going to happen. And Blake, I appreciate what you say about our responsibility to the taxpayers of being financially responsible for what goes on here. But there's something that I think that's more important than finances and our financial responsibility, and that's the morale of our employees. And what we're seeing right here is an offset of what I looked at a year ago as kind of a shell game, where you're moving this around and you're talking about the gold and the platinum and this and that and the other. And the end result, in my world, is what's best for the employees and what constitutes a positive morale within our rank and file. And you can't put dollars and cents on what's the most important thing for this agency is morale and taking care of our employees. And, you know, I don't care what it takes for us to get this turned around, but I want to be fair to the employees, and putting the dollars and cents over morale, to me, is not an answer to the dilemma that we have here, being financially responsible for our taxpayers. If we've got rank and file that are unhappy with what we're doing as a board, representing them, we're losers. And this is not a time and a place to be losers with our employees. Our employees are our greatest asset, and to put dollars and cents over their morale is not in my wheelhouse. So I don't care what it takes. I want this to get turned around to where we have positive morale. We don't have a room full of people coming in here that are our treasure, and they don't have to open their mouths at all. Just their presence, to me, is an indication that they're not happy. And it's our responsibility as a board to make sure that we have positive morale and we take care of our employees. And we can do both. And if it costs us a little bit more in what it takes to make this happen, I'm all for it, because we cannot have and cannot operate with a negative morale within our rank and file. It just doesn't work.
Thanks, Dale. I understand folks have concerns. I think we're doing the right thing. We're having a discussion. You know, I applaud Richard and Vicki for meeting with staff yesterday. I would hope that staff understands that this is a dialogue that we're having. I don't think that it's inappropriate for the board to have this dialogue and try and come up with the best plan for the agency. I think that we provide retiree health. We just went out to our customers, doubling the rates over the next 5 years with continued rate increases. We're about to do debt financing. That it makes sense for us to manage our agency appropriately, and we want to have, and we encourage having a dialogue with staff to make sure we do it right, and I'm not, I know there's concerns that we're trying to claw back the benefits, and the only way to, I think manage properly is to communicate, and the intent is not to claw back benefits, it's to come up with a plan to manage our costs, effectively. And the fact that folks have concerns, they're aware of it, that's good, and we have this dialogue, I don't think that it makes sense for us to say anything that we consider that might, have a negative reaction to staff we can't consider. I'm sorry, that's not our job, but I think it's important to communicate, be transparent. That's why we wanted this on the agenda early, purely as a discussion item. There's no action the board can take at this point to have this discussion with staff to try and do it appropriately. So I see staff's presence here. They're concerned. They have interest in it, and that's good. I think that's a good thing to have. If we ignore their concerns or we can't communicate clearly, that's a problem. At this point, I don't see it. It's a potential morale issue, but I don't know that it's one yet. So I think it's worth us continuing to have this discussion.
So I'll jump in. So I think the purpose of this agenda item is to receive information from staff, really a reminder as to what the current benefits package is, what the current health care benefit is, and then for staff to hear from us as a board as to whether or not we want to have a subsequent agenda item on our August board meeting to talk about this further, and have more detailed information at that time, and hopefully have an opportunity to have more communication with staff at that time. One option for us is to do nothing, kind of leave whatever the current program is that's out there in place, not even look at it, completely ignore it, and move on with life. It's an option. Another option is to take a look at what the current program is in more detail, how that is working for staff, or how maybe it's not. Maybe there's areas where it can be improved at the same cost to the district from a staff perspective. Maybe there's ways that the district's costs can be reduced, or the agency's costs can be reduced, and the value to staff overall stays the same or maybe increases a little bit. Because the one thing about this whole healthcare, I don't know what the right term is, program, is it's so doggone complicated that it's hard to really evaluate, and it affects every single person in their family a bit differently depending on what their individual circumstances are. So that's always the challenge from my perspective, is the whole health benefit side of it is so doggone complicated, it's hard for me to understand, and then how it either positively or negatively affects individual staff members is individual of every single staff member. So trying to hit that balance of what's in the best overall benefit of staff, and it's reasonably cost effective for the agency. You could spend your whole year focusing on the details of this stuff and probably still not get it perfect. So it's really a question of, do we want to look at, do we want to just kind of stick with the status quo, right, and not talk about this anymore this year? Or do we want to take a look at a couple of key items here and see if there's opportunity for a better situation for a combination of staff and the agency's bottom line? So I think that's the fundamental question.
For us not to talk about this or to deal with this is totally out of the question, Dan. I gotta ask, you people out here that have taken the time to come in here and listen to this discussion, last year we made a decision that we thought was best for not only the agency, but for the employees as well. That decision obviously has impacted you people out here in a negative way. How many people has our decision that we made last year in regards to this issue had a negative impact in you people's lives? Raise your hand. Everybody. Pretty much every. Raise your hands. Get them up there. Now, to me, I'm not nearsighted here, but I see a significant amount of our employees that are unhappy with our decision that we made last year in regards to this. What does it take to make it right? That's what we should be discussing.
So you want to have a further discussion in August about this?
Well, I'd like to be able to get feedback other than just hands of what kind of negative impact our decisions have made on our employees and how we can correct it.
Okay.
That's what our focus is.
And that's what I wanted to hear from staff. What went on? My understanding when we changed the system was that it would be to the benefit of the employees that were, let's say, real healthy and young, and versus, well, everyone else. You'd have a choice, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. This is such a moving target. It's so confusing to me. The healthcare thing, I can see where we didn't have enough information when we made that decision, and I want to hear.
Yeah.
First, I want to applaud everybody that participated in the meeting yesterday. And this letter really has opened my eyes. And I think, Dale, when you talk about morale, I kind of feel the undercurrent of this speaks to morale as far as what this year's been like and the fear for what next year could be. And I kind of have moved my mind a little bit closer to the fact that with perhaps morale erosion, you get things like turnover, which then beget things like having to hire people, find people, train people. Turnover is one of the more expensive things any organization can deal with. And I just look at it, and my first meeting last year was about this. And I wouldn't call it drinking from a fire hose. I don't know what I would. But it's a very day in and day out part of our lives, right? What the benefits are. If your kid gets sick, or you have your leg shattered on a rock, and you try to do the very best educated guess you can, choosing what benefits you have for the next year. You wouldn't have known that was going to happen. So you do your very best. And I think what I'm hearing from staff and people in the agency is that the dust feels like it has settled from the decision last year, and it doesn't feel good. And I think as a board, our decisions are, yes, for the benefit of the organization, but one of the key benefits for that organization are having happy people doing their jobs, because we all know happy people in jobs do much better. They're much more efficient. So I really believe that we need to bring this up, and there needs to be more discussion about it. But I also think that we have a year under our belts, and we kind of need to listen to the people that it's affected.
Yeah. So, if it's okay with the rest of the board, I suggest we go ahead and open this up for public comment. Yes, I'll open this up for public comment. Again, I know this can be intimidating, or speaking again, speaking in public to the board of directors about these kinds of issues can be sensitive. So I think we want to kind of let you know that our goal is to kind of better understand how our current program is affecting either positive or negative on your personal situation. We want to be careful. We're not going to delve into medical and healthcare issues because there's a whole set of law around that where we need to respect people's privacy. But we would invite you all to feel as comfortable as possible in addressing the board. Jake, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just trying to put context. So at one point, we provided platinum for care, and all employees did that. There was no cost sharing.
Right.
Then we offered this alternative cost sharing deductible increase, and according to the numbers up there, 32 people out of the 50 went to that. So we saved money, and the staff saw that as a benefit. We could have just stayed with, no cost share, we're providing 90-10, and that's it. I think that what we came up with was something that staff saw the value in. And yeah, we did, that first cut at it, we didn't really look at it carefully enough. I think we rushed, we did the 50% thing, we ended up realizing that, it was really a big benefit for staff, but there was not really a big benefit for us. So we adjusted it, and more people, and we talked about it, and even more people went into that. And so we've got, almost 2/3 of the staff have adopted this plan that we developed, that we didn't have to develop, and I know that they're concerned now that we're going to go to gold and perhaps remove those other incentives to get them there, and that's, I think, what's in flux here. I don't believe staff wants us to go back to platinum, because 32 out of the 50 employees have adopted the gold plan. So I'm just saying that, I think we've made progress in a good place that's benefited the district, and, staff has seen that as a benefit as well. So, okay, I think
Well,
move on to public
we had
comment.
a certain amount of time to see how it actually works, and that's what we're waiting to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for me, I don't really know what my health benefit is until I land in the hospital and I can't figure out that. Yeah. So anyway, let's open this up for public comment. Again, love to hear from you.
Real quick before I get started, full disclosure, I am on First Platinum, and I had plans last year before this meeting to switch to Gold to get into that 50% cost sharing. We were, last year at this time, my wife we had a newborn at the time, and we were planning on, continuing to grow our family, and I was worried about the reduced rate of Gold being put in, not really matching up with the 90%, so I chose to stick with the 90-10, the Platinum. And that's why I didn't raise my hand whenever other people did, is because I wasn't personally affected. I was still on platinum. So anyway, to get started, good morning, President Wilkins and Board of Directors. My name is Trevor Shamblin, and I work in the engineering department. Management has informed us that a class and compensation study is underway. And I thought, wouldn't it be more reasonable to look at total compensation, including benefits for all of our positions, before immediately going after the health benefits as a solution to save costs? There's been a lot of talk about ways to make us whole while saving money for the agency. For example, pushing everyone to Gold and offering something like a reimbursement for the additional 10% owed in coinsurance is not the same as First Platinum. This solution does not make us whole. The difference as stated in Vicki's presentation, is that the Platinum versus Gold has significantly more providers in the network. There are also difference in lengths of times for specific services, as Vicki said, so I'll kind of skip that part.
Excuse me, can you go back?
Sure.
Because I didn't quite get on that.
Yeah, so as Vicki said, the Platinum plan it was somewhere around 50%, I think, more providers in the network than the Gold plan. So to me, even if there was some kind of 10% coinsurance that the agency was going to help, for the 80-20 versus the 90-10, that doesn't create the same thing. That's 50% more doctors, that's more specialists, that's that's more opportunity if, you do have something really specific that you need to go to some, doctor, better chance they're going to be in your network. I don't think that we're being made whole necessarily by a 10% difference in co-insurance being supplemented through an HRA or something like that, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
A lot of people here know I've got a 1-year-old daughter named Emerson, and we have another baby girl due in December. My wife's doctor may not be in our new network if we're pushed to gold. We don't know. My wife's been seeing the same OBGYN doctor throughout both pregnancies, and we're concerned that we could have to change practices partially through the pregnancy. We were told by the doctor's office that insurance only covers one full anatomy scan ultrasound per pregnancy. So if we had to switch doctors, we might have to redo that. Am I stuck to the bill for that? How does that get resolved? This certainly is not solved by a 10% supplement to coinsurance. Given that she's due in December, we're also worried that if the baby comes late, we're pushed into the next year, and then we could be stuck with an additional 10% hospital bill for that coinsurance. We'd have to navigate a new process with the HRA provider while settling with our new baby into our home. Historically, Charles Snyder has not done a very good job providing the basic services that we have from them now, and I have very little confidence that this new process would be seamless from them. Also, if our baby's born at the beginning of the year, and is it possible that we could be stuck with a 40% coinsurance per the gold if we're out of network and we just didn't know that that hospital was in our network because we didn't have time to adjust? So the reason I bring up this personal stuff is I'm trying to urge the board of directors to remember that these decisions might look great in terms of equity across districts or to save money, but it has a real effect on our lives as employees here. Additional costs to doctors' offices and reduction in funds into our HRA accounts has substantial effects on our financial well-being. Many of us justify the drive up here every day for these health benefits because it allows us to take care of our families. Also, there was a lot of concern in the meeting yesterday of it feels like this, like last year, is being rushed. Last year, I think we found out a month later than this year, but it seemed like it was pushed through really quickly. And a lot of us want to know, what is the urgency on this? Why is this being pushed so quickly? It would certainly be nice to have time to plan for these major changes in health benefits, especially for those that have known health problems or, like us, are expecting additions to our families in the next couple of months. So I just ask that, please consider eliminating any proposed cuts to our health insurance, or if this does have to happen, we have a class and comp study coming. Maybe we can open up, as Richard said, the whole can of worms at once. And let's look at everything. Maybe this doesn't end up saving any money to the agency because with this reduced health benefits that's factored into our salaries, maybe there's an increase in salaries that comes with it, and maybe it's a wash. And this was all for nothing. We don't know without seeing all the information. And then lastly, I appreciate President Wilkins and Director Chesson for mentioning this too. Several colleagues have told me that they're not planning on speaking today because last year they felt like when they got up and said something, it didn't make any difference in the decision. So I just ask that you please take into account and collaborate with us to find a solution that doesn't have negative effects on our staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Ted.
Would anyone else like to provide comments to the board?
Morning, President Wilkins, Board of Directors. Jason Hayes, Laboratory Director. We've met. I kind of just want to share a little bit of an anecdotal story that I think kind of personalizes some of these decisions. So I'm a researcher. I love to research. When I was looking at this job 2 years ago, I researched the agency heavily. I got into the employee handbook, I got into the insurance, I got into it all, and made a decision to apply for the job, and was excited about it, and said, wow, this is an opportunity. So I applied, and through that process, and was offered a job. And while up here on a trip to get the medical, I discovered that the board of directors had made a decision to require new employees hired after a certain date to pay their 8% of their PERS contribution. So I was offered the job, and less than a week later, the board made a decision that I was going to be paying that 8%. I was down in a hotel down in Reno when I discovered it, and I texted my wife and I said, I guess I'm not taking this job. It was a substantial kick in the gut, and I don't perceive that it was done in any kind of personal way. I know it was likely coincidental for the most part, and I respect that fact. But if I had not already been to the point of having been very excited about coming up here and already up here preparing to take a medical examination for qualification for the job, I likely would have turned the job down. That is how close the decision was for me in deciding to leave my entire history, my family. I'm a fourth generation native Californian, grew up in Orange County, Riverside County. My family's all down there. I haven't seen my mom in a couple of years. I decided to come up here with my family. It was a decision I made, and it was based on what I was offered. And as I've been here for a couple of years, there's been modifications to what I was originally offered. Given what the potential was, now, Director Tresson, you have mentioned that the possibility of staying with how we treat the gold plan right now. I use this. I'm an advocate for that. I think that is fine for me. I cannot speak for people that would prefer to stay on the 90-10. I respect that they have reasons for that. But this, and it is generous. I do confess this is very generous. It is less than I was getting before. It's substantially less than I was getting before. So
Previous employer.
previous here, when it was the 50% cost split.
Gotcha.
And I recognize, a decision was made that appeared to be mutually beneficial for the agency and for the employee. And then after the fact, there was a little bit of buyer's remorse, and it said, wait, this did not turn out what we had hoped for. And I totally get that, and I totally respect that. But dollars and cents, I am now getting compensated at a lower level than I was. And again, I still recognize what we have sitting before us. Very generous. I'm one of those people that I don't have a ton of legitimate ongoing medical expenses, but I do have 8 children, and they've all got messed up teeth. So this money is the only way I can afford that. And maybe that was not the intent for this money, and I respect that completely, but that is how I use this money. If this money goes away, I will be paying $7,000 plus per child out of pocket for orthodontia because our dental insurance covers $1,000 lifetime for orthodontia, which is, it's great. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, but $1,000 to $7,000 it doesn't cover it, obviously. So I just wanted to kind of share that personal anecdote with you because I want to make sure we all understand there's the possibility that we could be dealing with what appears to be a bait and switch. I know it's not. I know that's not anyone's intent, but I'm here now. I've set down some roots in Reno. I can't afford to live in Truckee. I have a large family. I would be living in a dilapidated rental home, 2-bedroom with single pane windows, and I can't do that. So I live in the Reno area, and I drive every day in through the weather and all that. And again, I make those decisions. I own all of those decisions. It's transactional. You say you give me X, I say I'll be there for Y. But when the X starts to move a little, it starts to feel like maybe I didn't make a wise decision, or maybe there's not as much holding me down as I had anticipated. So again, this really goes towards what Director Wilson is saying, which is retention and recruitment is going to be extraordinarily difficult if we have a track record of things slowly kind of moving in a specific direction. So, but to answer your question, Director Tresson, this, I believe, as we set it up for the goal for me, and I won't speak for anyone else, is a somewhat equitable way of going about it. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Other comments for the board?
Try to keep this shorter than that, President Wilkins and the board. I'm going to bring up one other topic that's concerning me that I haven't heard talked about yet. Is if we decide, in my understanding, to go to strictly the gold plan, being that I am living in Reno, upon retirement, I cannot use the gold plan for medical coverage in Reno. It would have to be a platinum plan for them to take that. There's a big cost difference right there. And President Wilkins, I appreciate what you're saying. Can we look into how many providers are there? What do we have? If we get rid of platinum in Reno, what are we left with? I'm currently on gold. It works for me, much like Jay's saying it works. The cost sharing helps a lot with having kids and doing that. But at the same fact, when you come up here and as I'm getting later in my career, it's going, well, I got to look at retirement. And when I made the decision to move here and take this job, those were heavy considerations. What is available to work with? So yeah, just keep it short. We need to look into that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Other folks who'd like to comment to the board on this?
President Wilkins, board members. My name is Tanner McGinnis. I'm the mechanical supervisor here in the maintenance department. I just wanted to kind of speak to the impact and how discussions like this arise and what I see happen throughout the facility from a supervisory perspective. For me, part of what I'm tasked with doing is being an advocate for staff, bringing those things to management, and being kind of intermediary when there's something that the agency is advocating for. I have to sell that to the staff as well. And one of the major tasks since I've been here the last 3 years is trying to improve morale, trying to get more efficiency and make those gains that have been stated again and again about that's where we want to be. Every time we make some little strides here and there, I make some headway, get some good things going in our direction, get some momentum going. Discussions like this erode that almost immediately in what I see from the staff. For example, when we discussed this last year, the amount of time that people spend discussing it, venting, trying to understand what the implications are, what are the alternatives, hey, could we propose something different? That's all time that isn't spent doing what we've been brought here to do, and that's our jobs. Our jobs are to go and maintain the facility, to maintain permit compliance, regulatory compliance. And it takes away from that. It takes away from the interest in the staff of upholding the mission of the agency. It's making it less likely for, like you said, Director, the happy employee is an efficient employee. And we keep trying to build this, and then we take all these massive leaps backward. And sometimes it's a minor thing, and the perception that the staff take away from it is still massively impactful. And then as a supervisor, I'm going back out trying to undo that or try to change the perspective or give an alternative viewpoint that somehow helps them come to terms with it or come up with a solution that maybe gives us another option. And it takes away from my efficiency, it takes away from the efficiency of the staff. And for me, that being one of the primary things that we look for in trying to make this organization improve, it's in direct conflict with that, and it makes it an impossible task for me to be successful at what I'm here to do. On a more personal note, to me, I look at if, similar to what Jason was referring to, networks, or maybe Trevor was mentioning that network providers, if that changes and you lose a doctor, this happened to me, not from this agency, but from a previous employer where they changed medical providers and my doctors were no longer covered. In my family, we had to completely establish new care with a whole new group of doctors, and we ended up spending thousands of dollars just getting new patient visits and everything established for my family. If we burn one employee who loses a doctor and they have to go through that process, any financial savings that we may have realized are undone. because that one person's experience is going to come back and everyone is going to hear about it, and it's going to translate through the agency, and we're going to lose our efficiencies as a part of that. So appreciate the time, and thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would provide comments to us on this? No? Okay. All right. Well, thanks to those of you who spoke, and we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring the discussion back to the board. So I think the question is, do we want to have further dialogue on what the current health care benefit is that the agency is providing at our August board meeting? I think the relevance of the timing is that the open enrollment for health care happens in the September-October timeframe. So, as Blake pointed out earlier, what was done a few years ago was to create more options instead of just platinum. Create an option for platinum plus gold, platinum or gold, where the people that signed up for gold also got basically some additional money on the side to incentivize that. And then that got modified last year because there was quite frankly, I think some oversights on our part in terms of the level of that financial incentive. It actually made it more costly for the agency to provide the gold plan than it did the platinum plan, which didn't make a lot of sense. So ping-ponging around because of the complexities of this issue. I also understand, I personally had been, I had an employer, still do, where every year or two the health plan was changing. So we would contract in the private marketplace. And just the kind of the constant churn that created was, even though sometimes the plan got better, the fact that it was something different that we had to wrap our heads around kind of created its own distraction. So I think that's part of what Tanner was alluding to, and that's something that's real that we need to, I think, not discount. Even you can go from A to B, where B is actually better for the vast majority of the employees, but the churn in getting there can kind of offset the benefit that's achieved there until you get settled in. So I think that's just something that's real that we need to take into consideration. So I think the question is, as the board, do we want to talk about this more in August? And if so, what specific additional information would we like staff to pull together for us so that we can have as informed of a conversation about it as possible? So,
Well, I'm not clear on what the staff actually wants. Do they all want to go back to platinum? What is the...
So my sense is it's probably a mixed bag depending on what the incentive is that's provided to be on gold versus be on platinum. And it's probably a very personal decision for
That's
different
what I thought
employees.
it was before.
What's that?
That's what I thought it was before. It was very confusing. And why we're going back and forth.
Yeah, I don't think
There's one plan that covers all.
so. My understanding, and Vicki can jump in, the platinum plan is a 90%, 90-10 plan. It's kind of the best plan out there, but it's very expensive. The gold plan is less expensive. It's an 80-20 plan. And I think in simple terms, if you're a person that doesn't use the healthcare system very often, you're better off in an 80-20 plan where you get some cash back on top of it. If you're a person that that has to use the healthcare system extremely frequently, you may be better off with the 90-10 plan. And it's a bit of a guessing game because some of us have expectations as to where our health is going to be in the next year, and some of us it's just a complete wild card where you get hit with something out of left field that you weren't expecting. So I think it's it's a very personal decision, and I think it's based on speculation as to how the next year is going to go for people, is my sense. But, Vicki?
Yeah, I guess I would state that generally speaking, well, first of all, TTSA contracts with CalPERS to pay for the coverage of PERS Platinum for each employee, plus whatever eligible dependents they add to their plan. So that's basically a given to all employees at this time, unless we change our contract. With that said, when the PERS Gold plan came out and was first introduced as a means of incentivizing employees to move over to the Gold plan, try it out, learn about it, there was that cost share that was provided. My sense is that, and I'm included in that group, is that I went to the Gold plan for my family, and I was really excited about the additional monies that went into the HRA plan. I'll openly state, and this is just about myself, is that I have used that the HRA funds for many things that were outside of the medical plan, and of course those funds you have to use them for certain medical services, but it doesn't just include the medical plan. So in talking with employees yesterday, my real sense is that the majority of employees don't necessarily mind going to the Gold plan. It's more about what is the offer for us to go to the Gold plan, kind of what's in it for us, I guess I would say. And as we see when we're looking at the numbers, and I know they're not up there right now, but we do have a majority of our employees that are on the Gold plan right now, as opposed to the Platinum. I think it was 18 and 32, something like that. So I don't know if I helped answer your question, Director Smelser, but I do understand also as a majority message among employees that the feeling is we just want to make sure that our benefits aren't eroded and eroded and eroded and eroded and eroded over many years, so that at some point in the future we look at it and go, how did that happen? Right under our noses. We were aware while it happened, but I'll state also, as an employee and as an individual, I think we have a very generous plan. I'm very thankful for all the benefits, the salary that you do provide to us. But I would also be in that same group that, eventually after things erode, it does become kind of that thorn under the skin. I do understand that you guys have a very tough decision to balance the ratepayer, what we need to provide to the ratepayer versus what we're paying to the employees, and I don't envy the decision you have to make. I'm kind of on a soapbox right now, and I apologize, that's not what you were asking for, but if I can answer any other questions, I'd be happy to.
I have a question.
Sure.
And maybe I'm reading this completely wrong, but it almost seems that if we stuck this year with what we put in place for last year and didn't have a change, I think it might address the fact that President Wilkins, you were talking about that churn and the anxiety. Another thing, and full disclosure, my wife's a family practice doctor, so I'm very sensitive to when you have to change providers. That's a fundamental thing. But I guess what I'm hearing is that perhaps if we didn't do anything this year, left it as is based on what was last year, didn't create that churn, then perhaps we would have more data next year to go into it and have maybe a little bit better educated decision. Does that, tell me if that's what...
That is, I'm sorry.
No,
that is absolutely possible. The difficulty in that, and it's not something we can't overcome, of course, is that CalPERS doesn't announce their rate changes and plan design changes until July. And that leaves us a very small window, July and August essentially, to make any kind of decisions. And I say us, meaning you guys. So again, I know I don't envy you, and I know you're in a really tough place in the decisions you have to make. I mean, if we could start that discussion earlier in the year, but again, we're not going to know what kind of changes CalPERS might make. I would say too, another theme that I heard among employees yesterday was, can we do a class and comp? Can we look at that class and comp? Can we, and this isn't the way it was stated, but this is what I would envision, is that can we make some changes? Can we state that we would make some changes during that class and comp process? Meaning, can we say that we want to only pay for gold? Can we say that we would change the cost share and the deductible to a certain amount? Can we look at the employee portion of classic retirement? Can we look at a lot of different things at that time, and pardon the pun, or the way I'm going to say this, but rip the Band-Aid off at that time and then set salaries accordingly. And I think that was my sense from staff, is that if we could do that rather than taking away the benefits and then looking at salary at some point in the future, because right now our salaries are set based on the benefits that we do have. That was the majority sense I got from staff, and maybe I didn't take that correctly, but feel free to, not that I get to say, feel free to chime in. I think that would probably make staff fairly happy to look at all that at that time and have that discussion with all of you at that time. So just backing up to what the class and comp study looks like. When we did our class and comp study last time, yes, they look at salaries, but they're also looking at every benefit we have here at TTSA, and every one of those benefits is taken into account via some kind of formula in the background that actually sets our salaries. And I think that staff is generally aware of that, and I think that they would, again, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that was the theme yesterday, is that if we could do that all at once, that slow churn, as you say, would be alleviated. That's my sense anyway. And
Yeah, just kind of echo, I think the consensus was that the previous class and comp was considered, the 75th percentile was considered with the platinum plan being provided. So I think overall staff is looking at, and as what I explained to them is, when we discussed this last year, a compensation study was kind of wrapped up in it, that if we made any changes that affected that, we would most likely look at that. And that has indeed led to an expectation that we're going to do one. I don't think we need to do a full-on class study. I think I have a couple that I would like to look at, but it would be more of a compensation study. And we're getting to that time frame. We're about 5 years into the one we had, maybe a little short, but there was also a commitment to staff that when it made the shift from 50% of the employees becoming PEPRA, there would be a revisit at that time. So we've also triggered that as well. But I think, and again, I want to be cautious speaking for staff, so if I misrepresent, please speak up if you have an opportunity today to do that, is that since it was based on 75th percentile at platinum, a lot of people are taking advantage of the cost share by moving to gold, and then there's a mutual benefit between the agency and the staff by doing that. And I think, generally speaking, they like that, and that's what they would like to see continue.
Thanks, Richard. Further questions or comments from the board? So I'll try to summarize, and I'm not sure I'm going to get it right. I think as a board, we've got a couple of options. One is to basically not have any further dialogue on the health insurance program, and just kind of play through with the one that we currently have. And then if we choose to make that a part of a larger conversation, potentially over compensation and a more comprehensive conversation about benefits in the future, I think that's one option. Another option would be to put this back on our agenda at our August board meeting. And I think if we were going to do that, we would want to provide direction to staff on some specific pieces of information that we would like to see, so that we can have a more focused conversation. I think those are our two basic options. And then, so maybe we should stop there, because if, as a board, we decide we don't want to twist the dials and we don't want to talk about it anymore, then we're done. If we decide we do want to bring this back in August, then I think we need to have more discussion about what it is we want to talk about and what we're expecting from staff to provide us, so that that can be a productive conversation. So, any thoughts?
I actually feel really strongly that we don't move forward with this and fold it into the class and comp, because I think we get a much better picture of everything. Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a big study, but I think that that's an appropriate way to go.
Yeah, Blake?
First, I just want to thank all the staff, especially the folks who spoke. You guys did a great job articulating your concerns, and I appreciate that. It really helps me to understand, and I think it's educational for all of us. You probably recognize that I'm probably one of the prime drivers in looking at this and considering these options and the development of the option that we have now. At this point, I'm feeling like, given the issues that have been brought up, that stick with what we have. I would like to have, given that it's such a big ticket item, the overall expense is a percentage of our budget. Now that we're going to get the actual numbers, to have Vicki maybe present a staff report or an agendized item, at least let us understand what those cost consequences are. And then, I heard multiple people bring up the concerns regarding the provider network, and maybe that's what's holding them back from I think, taking advantage of potentially a more advantageous thing. And so I would direct staff to really look into that. We did that at our agency, and as Dan said, the numbers you had were statewide, but when we looked at our area, and this was over a year ago, the provider network was identical. And so I think education is important for folks who are on the fence trying to decide, and if the provider network is a big decision point, having that information is valuable. To be great for staff to be able to provide all everybody else knowledge, so that they can make an educated decision on that, and opportunities there for staff to get hopefully a better plan, and the agency again to move towards better cost sharing on our part as well. I forget your name. Your comment about the retiree health and out of state. That's an issue. With 56 employees, more retirees, probably pulling health insurance than there are active employees. That's a concern. They don't have the option to go to the Gold if you live out of state, and a lot of our retirees do live out of state, and so something for us to. I don't think the retirees aren't here. And so the decision we make does affect a lot of folks that sort of left with one arrangement to change the rules on them, and they're not even given an opportunity to share their concerns. Doesn't feel really good either. And so I guess summarize, educate folks so that they can make the decision. I think stick with what we have. Provide us with the board with the cost implications, so we understand what it is, and then possibly as part of a compensation study, we can look at this holistically, salary, benefits, the whole range of benefits, and try and come up with something that works well for everybody. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Dale? Dave?
I just want to move forward as far as for taking care of our employees, taking care of our health benefits and whatever it takes. I don't want to go backwards. If we're talking about saving money and we're going backwards, that's not part of what I'm interested in. I want to move forward. I want to take care of our employees. I want to see the morale turn around, and I want to see some positive situations here in regards to our insurance. It's very confusing. It's how this all has come about over the last couple of years has been a significant concern for me. And like I say, this is not a time and to sit back and take away benefits from our employees.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing from a majority of the board is that we're not requesting that further discussion on modifications to the current health plan offerings be agendized for the August board meeting. It sounds like it's not the intent of the board to make modifications in the current health plan offerings in this next healthcare cycle, I'll call it. I think Blake requested some data when the time is right on, once we get the information from PERS, what our expected total healthcare expense will be this year, recognizing it's an estimate still. I think two other data points that would be helpful would be if we just did straight up platinum plan, because what would that cost be? And if we just did straight gold plan with no employee reimbursement whatsoever, I'm not saying that's where we're going. I'm saying understanding the sideboards of this conversation, I think, is valuable, because I think understanding what's the straight up cost of the platinum plan, what's the unsubsidized cost or unincentivized cost of the gold plan, as I see it, that kind of establishes sideboards. And then what are we paying, which should be somewhere in between there. I think those would be good data points,
That's
at least for me, so that as we're thinking about this in the future, whether it be a part of a larger conversation or some other dialogue, that we have that information. And then I think whether this gets incorporated into a more comprehensive class and comp study and more comprehensive kind of total compensation package negotiation, that's one way to approach this, which would be holistic. That can be a big lift too. I think if it happens that way, that's great. If not, I do think that it's important for both us and the employees to continue to kind of work on this healthcare issue, to try to dial it in so that it hits that sweet spot that's kind of creates the best situation for the combination of the employees and the agency. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to create some kind of working committee or working group that has some employee representation, some senior management representation, whether or not it's the finance committee, but kind of a smaller group that can have an opportunity to really work through the nuances of this and hopefully kind of recognize that we're all working towards similar goals that maybe can help build confidence amongst everyone that we're all trying to do what's best for a combination of the employees and the agency. So that may be something that we consider and that may be something that's important to do, even if we try to build this in to a part of a class and comp study, because paying the employees share of PERS versus not, that's a pretty straightforward thing to understand. This healthcare stuff has just got so many variables built into it and so many nuances that you really got to dig into it to get it right. So I'm not suggesting we take action today to say let's form a committee. I'm saying let's let's think about that over the next month or two, and maybe Richard and Vicki could kind of feel that out amongst the employees to see if that's something that could be well received. Maybe give us some thoughts as to how that might work. What the appropriate group would be to work on that, and come back to us with some suggestions. Okay. Is that?
I have one request, excuse me.
Yes.
And Vicki, I think you're the right person. Could we possibly get a comparison the first 6 months of this year under the 23 plan versus last year, the 22, so that we see what that bottom line is for both of them? I think that would be beneficial for us to look at.
And what I would like to see, I come from a place where I had one benefit plan for everyone, and it was very generous, and so you didn't need to have a bunch of different options. I would like to see what it would look like for us to have that, and what the cost breakdown would be, and take some of this confusion out of it. I'm not blown away by CalPERS in general.
What you're saying is you want to see the impact to the agency if everybody was on the platinum plan?
That would do it.
And what kind of benefits the employees would have been on the platinum plan as opposed to having a choice going back and forth in this very confusing situation between the gold and the platinum plan. I think what you suggested, Dan, was right spot on. What is the impact for the cost for the agency if everybody was on the platinum? And what would be the impact to the employees if everybody was on the gold plan?
Right.
Because I think that's what we're discussing here. And right now, the way it appears to me that some are on the platinum plan, some are on the gold plan, some are, there's a lot of confusion.
And would that solve the issue with Nevada retirees?
Right. So I just want to make sure we're providing staff with good direction. So this is information that we would like to receive. We're not necessarily looking at changing anything this next year. But just as we're asking staff to filter information back to us, this is a piece of information we'd like to see.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This item was not agendized for any action. I think we've concluded the item. I want to thank the employees who came and thank the employees who spoke. And
Just sitting there told us a lot.
yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation as needed. Okay. Next on the agenda.
Let's take a little break.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah. Let's go ahead and put the meeting back on the tracks here. So next item on our agenda is approval of ordinance 2-2023, which amends ordinance 2-2015, making conforming changes to agency pension charges. Who's taking the lead on this?
That's me. I'll stay up here for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just, last month we had the hearing that we did on the consent item where we just agreed to not have it, like, I don't remember what the word was.
Waiver of the first reading.
Waiver of the first reading, thanks, Rochelle.
You got it.
And this is, just to remind everybody, we are not changing connection fees. This is just a temporary ordinance to bridge that gap until we can get all the connection fee study done and officially get the rules and regs completed. Because we have a disconnect in the tables.
Right.
Not changing any fees, not just.
Right. And we've discussed this item a couple months ago.
Yes.
We were going to put this on the June agenda, but it didn't work out
Because it was a special meeting.
it was a special meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
The first reading was in May.
Right. So we already had the first reading. This would be the second reading. Blake, it sounded like you were getting ready to make a
I
motion.
will move to adopt ordinance 2-2023 as presented.
I second.
and a second. Let the record reflect there's no public comment on this item. And if there's no further board discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Okay, next is approval of resolution 7-2023 adopting a report on delinquent charges and authorizing their collection on the county tax roll. And a question, is this for, I know the next two, there's a similar item for the Placer County tax roll and the one for the Nevada County tax roll. Is this supposed to be specific to the El Dorado County tax roll?
No, this is a separate resolution in of itself. If we had some for El Dorado, it would also be on here. So
Okay.
this is related to the hearing, the public hearing.
Okay.
And then we have to do an individual resolution for each county.
Okay, but so we happen to not have any delinquencies in El Dorado County? That's why we don't
That's correct.
have that? Okay. Okay.
So that this resolution is just for that, to adopt a report on delinquent charges and authorize collection on the tax roll.
Okay. Moved by Director Trezin.
Second.
Second by Director Cox. Let the record reflect there's no public comment on this item. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Next is approval of resolution 8-2023, adopting the 22-23 tax roll billing report and requesting collection of delinquent sewer service charges on the Placer County tax roll.
So moved.
Moved by Director Cox, seconded by Director Smeltzer. Let the record reflect there's no public comment. Those in favor of signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Next is resolution number 9-2023, doing the same stuff for Nevada County.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Director Cox, second by Director Smeltzer. No public comment. And those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unopposed. The next is discussion and approval of OPEB premium reimbursement.
So this is so, it's hard because I can't see if I have my glasses on. So we are going to be, we are in the position to be able to request a reimbursement for health insurance premiums, same position as last year. Michelle and I both met with total compensation to walk through the calculations, and then it was presented to the Finance Committee. My initial recommendation for the Finance Committee was $350,000 because it is a conservative approach, considering the report is on based off of 2 years prior for the actuarial report. You'll see that in the packet. But we are actually going to request $450,000, which is still a conservative number. I know there was a question on the reason for the $350,000. I added back the service costs like we did the prior year, which is where, and then rounded. I know that I wasn't at the Finance Committee. I know there was a question there. Total Compensation also prepares a report for us to make not just the actuarial report, and this is not a full actuarial report, that'll be done next year. They also prepare a report for us to make a recommendation on what to request. It's based off of current CERT account information, which is our trust account, and then our current liability plus service costs, and then the estimated premiums that we will be making, just to make sure that we're not getting ourselves under being 100% funded. And we have to request this in July, and we can only request up to the amount of premiums that we paid, which the $450,000 is less than that. The premiums we paid was in 23 was $678,000 and change. There's also a resolution that needs to go with it. There's an official name for that report, but I don't remember what it is. Do you, Blake? The PECTA. Yeah. So this is to request approval from the board for us to request reimbursement of $450,000 from our trust fund.
And approval of resolution 10/2023 and
11/2023. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes your presentation.
I'm sorry?
That concludes or?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Crystal. I think it's a great move on the district part. You know, I think the older board members probably know, that with the retiree health benefit we have for staff, that the agency put money into this trust fund, CERP, which has grown considerably to 13 million and change, fluctuates to the market, but the purpose of that fund is to do exactly this, to help offset our retiree health costs. And as you said, we had $670,000 in actual retiree health costs in the last year, and based on this actuarial number, it says we should be paying something like $178,000 should be, given the amount in the CERP, we should spend $170,000. So it basically backs out that what we should do this year is withdraw or disperse $450,000 out of the trust fund to offset some of those costs, which is improvement on our part. Hopefully, in years going forward, assuming returns on that
And our
CERP fund are good, we'll continue to be able to offset some of our retiree health costs.
And just for a quick summary, our CERP balance as of June 21st is 13 million and change, and our estimated liability at June 30th, 2023 is 12,456,000. And so the difference there is 593,000. So we're still even requesting less than that to keep us 100% funded.
Okay. So the action is to approve adoption of those two resolutions for the disbursement of $450,000 towards the retiree health costs in the previous year. So I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Thanks, Blake. Thanks, Scott. Any further discussion by the board on this?
No?
Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? All right, there was no public comment on that. Approval to award the 2023 digital scanning of sewer lines project. Jay or
So, due to the impending transitions here, we're going to have Aaron give the report.
Okay.
Morning, President Wilkins and Board of Directors. TTSA, where staff is seeking approval to award the 2022-2023 digital scanning sewer line project. As is customary each year, TTSA will be digitally scanning the Truckee River Interceptor this fall. This project will focus on scanning schedules 5 and 6, which span the distance between the open land to the west of South River Street and the water reclamation plant. As shown in the figure on the next page on the board packet, the total length of the scan is approximately 30,200 feet in length and consists of RCP ranging in size from 18 inches to 42 inches in diameter. If awarded by the board, field work is slated to occur sometime between September 5th and October 13th, 2023. Staff received one bid for the project from ProPipe at a cost of $1.79 per linear foot. Review of this bid yielded one minor irregularity in how the bidder completed the forms, but this irregularity was clarified by the bidder during review. It's recommended that this irregularity be waived. The total estimated project cost based on the bid is $54,058, which is significantly less than the engineer's estimate of $140,000. Recommendations, staff recommend that the board waive the minor bid irregularity and provide approval to award the bid for the 2023 digital scanning sewer lines projects to ProPipe in the amount of $1.79 per linear foot and approve a contract amount of up to $60,000.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions from the board on this?
I've got a couple. So there was one bid that we got, so only the one bid?
Yeah.
Okay. And then estimate of $140,000 versus $54,000? That's an enormous gap.
Yes.
What
happened? The engineer that worked on this was Scott Fleming, and this is a process of about 2 years. But what Scott was able to do was identify some efficiencies in the contract. So we're, I guess, kind of overall in engineering, what we're trying to do is we're finding out that how we put contracts together affects the bid price.
Okay.
And this is a result of that. The other piece that staff and Scott did on this was also go out and seek other bidders. And so we had 3 contractors at the pre-bid meet, but we're not sure why the other 2 didn't submit bids. But we trying to drum up others contractors to make it more competitive.
Okay. Thank you.
What in particular, sorry, Dan, what in particular in the contract box did you change that resulted in reduced costs that you were previously requiring?
So what we had before is we had 2 bid items, one for geolocating and the other for the actual digital scanning. We're not doing the geolocating in these bids because we've done that prior. And then with regards to there used to be 2 specs, we combined those 2 specs. So, tinkering with how the bid schedule. So.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're estimating more like $4 a linear foot, and the unit cost came in at $179.
Yeah.
As compared to doing less linear footage.
No, the linear footage is the same.
Yeah. So it's just a lower unit cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other question. What is your return frequency on videoing the TRI? When was the last time this section of pipe was videoed?
This particular section, I want to say, was about 3 years ago, but I don't know that number off the top of my head.
We try and get out there. Our goal is to try and, on a 3-year cycles, get the cameras in.
Yeah. Okay. I know years ago.
We actually say 4 years, only so that it gives us some flexibility to, like, perhaps swap, the order in case construction is getting in the way, or things like that.
It sounds like smart, but also very conservative. Like it's a reasonable amount of time that things could change without waiting too long for that change to be negatively impact the district. So sounds good.
Good job. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I so move.
Moved by Director Wilson to award the digital scanning of sewer lines project to ProPipe Inc. out of Irvine, California.
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Smeltzer. There's no public comment on this item. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Next is discussion and staff direction on the scope of work for surplus property risk assessment RFP. Richard.
So, directors at the June Board of Directors meeting, staff was directed to initiate the process for RFP for doing a risk assessment. I wanted to bring it back in front of the board as a bulleted point of scope of work, so I make sure we capture all the board's concerns. We have engaged a engineering firm who is interested in the project. It's a little outside of their typical scope, but they do have a sub that they work with, and they have offered to develop the scope of work under their business development, so no cost to the agency. So again, just want to make sure that I'm capturing all the points of concern as we flesh out the scope of work for the RFP. That being the environmental safety hazards risks associated with the reduction of the buffer space, hazards posed to the treatment facility from any various development that might occur in the buffer space if the agency so chose to surplus it. Potential nuisance risks to land users, kind of goes to that good neighbor issue, and then review of the overall need of the buffer space for future treatment processes. And I want to add that the engineering firm that we've engaged is very familiar with our master plan, so they have a good feel for what those items are and what we may need, so.
Is this going to be a two level deal where they're looking at chlorine and no chlorine?
We can ask them to include that if we so chose to.
As long as we have the plant or the facility on the property, I'd sure like to see both studies.
Okay, we'll make sure we add that in.
Did you say someone's willing to do this?
They're willing to develop the scope of work.
The scope of work.
Yeah.
Would you come back to us with that scope, or would that be, are we basically looking for authorization to execute that scope of work?
Well, as I see it, I think you're asking us to approve kind of the broad topics.
Yes.
That would be included, then an RFP would be crafted.
Yes.
Then we would get proposals from interested parties, and then presumably that would come back to the board.
Yeah, in discussion with Jay yesterday, both of us feel like the firm that we've engaged would be best suited to move the project forward.
Okay.
So a formal RFP process, we would like to forego that, but we'd happily bring back their proposal, the cost, and the finalized scope for board approval.
Okay.
I think that makes sense, given the interest in the public, that they would see the analysis we're doing that could affect their desires on there, and so there'd be an opportunity for them to get feedback in the process as well.
And we were hoping to have a cost estimate that just with the fact that they're having to engage someone who kind of specializes in risk assessments and had done it before, we weren't able to get those cost estimates together yet. So.
Okay. As far as the 4 bullets you have there, on the second bullet, hazards posed to the treatment facility from various development within that. Is hazards and risk kind of a synonymous term in your mind?
Yeah.
You know, I think that there's risks that may not be, you know, a hazard, so a slightly broader term there. And then the final bullet, review overall needed buffer space for future treatment processes. Again, it sounds inclusive to treatment. There may be other, you know, processes, storage of vehicles or whatever it might be that kind of are ancillary activities that the district does that's perhaps outside of just pure treatment. So just, you know, for just district needs, you know.
Okay.
Would be the only 2 comments that I would, you know, tweak a little bit in the scope so we don't get pigeonholed into anything.
Okay. Other comments or questions from board members?
Yeah, I don't know if this plays into it, but I know that there's limited traffic limitations on the road coming in. And as this whole thing develops, I'm wondering if we need to think in terms of that, or if that would be something later down the road.
I think it's something that needs to be thought about. This might be premature for that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Okay.
Being a more detailed conversation later.
Another comment is, you know, acknowledgement on the board and staff's part that if we go down this route and we hire somebody to do this, and they find, you know, they could find, and I don't know how conclusive the consultant's going to be, it could eliminate any development depending on the results, or it could really open the door because we're leaning on, you know, a lot of these things for our reasons to not allow stuff in there. And it's currently our subjective board's decision, and now we're going to get a report, and if they conclude that, you know, there's no risk to the agency for development on the last 200, 300, 400 acres. Now we've got the public looking to do this, and we've got a document that says, you know, that comment, there's no good neighbor to a sewer facility is invalidated, sort of. It's going to be harder for us to, you know, reject proposals to consider us declaring it surplus. So just an acknowledgement that we're going into this, you know, this we don't know what the results are going to be, and they could, you know, not jive with our current personal opinions on it.
But how did we get to this place where we have this much space to begin with? So there's some knowledge just from that. And then if the system changes and we have a totally safe way of disinfecting, then maybe it is time to change and maybe not.
Yeah,
But we have to know.
It seems like
somebody other than you and I have to tell us what is safe, what is reasonable.
Yeah. They don't. I mean, we could decide, like we have for the last, since 1977, the board can make that decision on its own. And that's what we've done. We've allowed some one thing and not allowed others. We've, changed our agreement with Tykert and stuff. And so I just acknowledging, I think it's the right path. It makes logical sense, rational. Just acknowledgement that it may not agree with, where we currently are. So it's just.
I think we're currently looking at wide kind of across the spectrum of opinions on it. So this may help either keep us at a wide spectrum or it might bring us closer together. We'll find out.
Before we head down this path, I want a clear understanding of each of the member districts that I feel personally that we should have input from the member districts' boards. In other words, I don't know how you would solicit input from your constituents, but before we head down this path, I think it's a good direction if this is, if this is going to continue going the way it is and it's going to pick up pace. There might be a situation where the constituents of our member districts don't want this to happen. Now, I can vouch for the 4 board members on the Olympic Valley Public Service District, and that is they want to maintain the safety and buffer zone as we've had it for the last 50 years, but we also would like more information. And the presentation that we had last month from the gal from Truckee Planning or whatever, that was some very worthwhile information that I think that each one of the member districts should have at their board meetings, and then allow the directors of each of the member districts to make a decision on whether or not we want to move forward with this process, because this is going to start consuming a lot of time and a lot of effort at this agency and with this board. And like I say, the feelings that I get from the other 4 board members at Olympic Valley is they want to maintain status quo. And until they get more information of what this is all about, that's their position. And I'm hoping that we can get a presentation within the next month or so before this keeps going down the line. When I read the Moonshine Inc. article this last month, it was almost a done deal. And it's far, in my world, of being a done deal. And as far as for us board members of the Tahoe Truckee Sanitation Agency putting on their TTSA board cap and saying we're going to sell off surplus property, that's out of line. We're representing our constituents of our member districts, and they should have some kind of input on this.
Yeah, but I think that's up.
You're shaking your head there, Blake.
Yeah, I think Dan was going to probably take my line. I mean, every decision we make here, we've been appointed to, vote on the board, and I think each of us individually should, do what we feel is appropriate when that time comes to make the decision. But I don't think that you can dictate what the other board members must do on this one issue regarding going back to their boards or their constituents. I mean, there's all sorts of huge dollar decisions that
What
we're
I'm
making as
saying,
board
Blake,
members. So,
is this property is owned by a taxpayer. And the taxpayer is, the last time I was informed, was about 28,000 shareholders, 28,000 connections. Some may have several connections, but 28.5 or something like that. These are the people that own this property, okay? They should have some kind of a say-so in what's going on here. And, you know, I feel that being as open and as transparent as we can in regards to this issue is what our modus operandi is right at this board. And for us to sit back and assume that everybody is going to give a carte blanche, you guys go ahead and do what you want to do, I don't think that's a fair assumption.
I agree. So what we've got in front of us is an item to follow through on a suggestion you made at the last board meeting, Dale, which is to do a risk assessment. I'm supportive of us moving forward with this. You brought up a related topic, which is how do each of us as individual board members want to garner information from our member districts. You're choosing to request that your board have specific conversation about it, have large presentations on it. That's fine. What I'm doing is I'm reporting to my board, as I have been for a couple of years on this, and saying here's what's going on at TTSA, and I'm talking specifically about this. The offer for the town manager in Truckee to come present to our board has been made. Our board members are going to discuss that at their meeting this week as to whether or not they want that presentation. That's how we're going to handle it. Dave chooses to handle it.
Alpine board members have just sort of gotten into this discussion. I've talked about it before, but we've gotten into the discussion, and we also are going to have the town manager do the presentation for the board because they haven't made up their mind.
Got it. And then how Scott wants to garner feedback from North Tahoe is really
For our
between
board,
him and that
I think the risk assessment will be the component that kind of drives everything else.
Yeah.
Because that kind of says, okay, this is what we've got, this is the beginning. Now, what do you guys want to do?
But to Blake's statement about whether we go into this or not, we're just now getting a proposal for a proposal, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going to see that next month or the month following to look at it. And my thinking about all this stuff is this land sitting here doing nothing is just fine. If someone wants to move their asphalt plant on board, then where are we going to get the money back from the study on our risk assessment, the study on what was the next one? Property research and the $20,000. I would like to see where this is going. If we're not going to do anything with any of this land, we're going to spend $40,000 or so, or who knows how much, on studies that we could totally avoid spending by not doing anything. So if somebody else wants the land, let's see some cash. That's where I'm thinking.
Let them pay for the study.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's your guys' opinion. So we're at this point asking, staff is asking us whether or not they want us to follow through with what you suggested at the last meeting, Dale, which was to pursue a risk analysis.
And that's what he's doing. They're going to give us a bid for some of that. We
Right.
still haven't accepted anything. And this bid is not going to cost a dime. So
Right. Well, but conducting the study, there's going to be a
that
cost
will be expensive.
associated with
And
that.
that's what I'm asking about when we get to that point to think about.
Yeah, I think you said a proposal for a proposal, right?
Well, that's what we have now.
Yeah.
And I'm in favor of that one.
Okay. Just one other thought I have as it relates to this risk analysis. For me, there's a big difference between, there's three basic types of potential land use that I think falls into different categories when contemplating risk. There's residential land use, which is much different than either industrial or other public agency land use, and then there's stuff that's in between, which is more like commercial activities that aren't residential but that may generate more kind of public activity. And so my thought is that for us to be thinking about this land, it's important to think about those three categories as part of this conversation.
Absolutely.
Because my thoughts on having residential development in this area might be much different than my thoughts on having the Truckee Donner PUD, setting up their corporate maintenance yard out here. And I think the risk analysis for me would be more useful if it looks at those three categories independently.
The presentation we got from
Jen Fowler.
Was she the town planner or the
town manager?
It didn't suggest anything about housing out there. It was all light commercial, as I understood it.
I know that, but we're trying to, in my mind, we're trying to do a comprehensive risk analysis. Just because she was talking about what that interest was doesn't mean we're not going to have other people saying, oh, what about housing? What about this? What about that?
And I think
I want to look at this more comprehensively, not just look at kind of the idea of the day that's in front of us.
But what Josh also said when on his legal analysis was that one of the things they have to look at is low-cost housing first when you're giving up surplus land.
Potentially, right? Unless we decide that housing is of higher risk,
right,
in some proximity to the plant, in which case we potentially can say no housing.
So another thing occurs to me.
Say no nothing. Right.
Not real familiar with the landscape. But how far down East River Road how close do they get down East River Road coming this way? Seems like it runs quite a ways in this direction. Not bad. I was thinking about their housing, and they want to do riverfront housing along there. We're going to have housing right across the river here. I don't know what the property is.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's state land on the other side and isolated on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Okay.
There's a railroad easement.
All right.
I thought that was a good suggestion to direct the consultant to look at those land uses. I would say just maybe, because I think it's in their scope, recreational is another sort of use. I know it falls under the public use, but there's a difference between a corporation yard and ball fields, which I know is a request. And it would be good to specifically look at that end use also as an option.
Yeah, I think Andrew, when he drew up that, he categorized them quite well.
Okay, so any other comments for
So
staff?
where we're headed right now is we're going to get a proposal for a risk assessment contractor or organization, correct?
Yes, we'll work with a consultant with the scope of work provided and feedback provided today to develop a final scope of work with a cost estimate and time frame estimate to complete the study. We'll bring that back.
Okay, the next item is approval of the general manager to basically get title reports on all of our land.
Correct. In working with our agency council, it looked like the cost to do that was going to be over the $15,000 purchasing limit for my authority. So I'm just looking for authority to go up to $20,000 to have those title searches conducted, working with legal counsel.
And what that would give us is basically title reports on all of TTSA's land holdings, which would show us what legal encumbrances exist on any of our properties.
Correct.
Okay.
But my question about that is, do we need that at this time? Is this something that we could put off? I mean, 20,000 is 20,000. Is this something we can put off until a risk assessment is done and find out if we're even interested?
Yeah, I think we could. I think, I, for one, regardless of any of these other conversations, would be curious to know what restrictions exist on this 960 acres of land we own or don't exist. I think it's just good information for us to have as a landowner.
I'm surprised we already got that.
Is it worth 20 grand is what I'm saying, and we're spending this money ahead of it actually doing anything.
From my perspective, it's worth it. Not sure about the other board
I
members.
agree. Yeah.
I think it's our responsibility. If somebody
Jay, were you going to
else-
say something?
Well, just that our consultant, they may want to see these title reports to provide another professional opinion. They may want to know what restrictions they want to talk about.
Right. Well, and I think where that's relevant is, for instance, we've got this land we acquired from Tigers that has some pretty significant deed restrictions on it.
Yeah, as an example.
So the fact that those deed restrictions exist may kind of minimize the need to do a whole lot more discussion on what could or couldn't happen with that property. If we were to find similar deed restrictions elsewhere, it could, I think that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that it could influence what this other consultant is doing. It could be good data for them.
No, just for clarity, the Tiger property is not going to be really our property until 2053.
Yeah, it actually is our property now. They're leasing it back from us. So, yeah, we own,
But we have a lease with them until 2053.
for the portion where their rock plant is, yeah, that southernmost portion is 2053.
And then the area that's been reclaimed, that has a deed restriction on any kind of development on the property, but that's not part of the lease area, right? So for instance, that area that's been reclaimed, if we as TTSA had some kind of an agency need for that, it's land that's outside of the lease area, do we have the ability to use that for agency purposes?
So the lease area actually extends, I have the map, but it extends that entire property to the east of us, along that property that was bordering Martis Creek.
Mm-hmm.
That entire property was under the lease agreement.
Okay.
And it's
But the lease agreement said that there was this, I think I called it partial release property, which is the part that released back to us after they reclaimed. Yet they're retaining their lease rights for the area where the rock plant is until 2053. So the deed restrictions that Andrew brought up last meeting, it'll be interesting to find out, does that apply to that entire lease area, or just the area in which they're still operating the rock plant?
So this would be the kind of stuff that this analysis is being done to further flesh out, right? So
Yes.
we've got a more clear picture of legal restrictions, lease restrictions,
Yes.
deed restrictions,
Yeah.
Other encumbrances, and then overlay that with future agency needs, and then overlay that with kind of this kind of risk analysis, which to me gives, that's a good body of information for us as a landowner to have when we're making decisions about our land.
I wonder when you solicit the proposal from the risk analysis to let them know that we're in the process of getting the title report, whether that influences their timing, do they want that before they would actually kick the project off or not, if it's influences.
Yeah, we will do that as in part of our discussions. They asked us if we wanted them to do it, since we have already gotten the ball rolling with legal counsel.
So they know they
So I
want
think
it.
it's definitely going to play in, as Jay mentioned.
And I think it's good housekeeping to know what we've got. So we're ready. I've moved to direct the general manager to engage the title company for not to exceed amount of $20,000.
Okay.
TSA properties.
I'll second.
Motion by Blake, second by Dale. Any further discussion? No public comment on this item. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
Any users? Okay. Let the record reflect Director Schmelzer was opposed. You okay if we keep going, Dale? I'm sorry, Blake.
Yeah, go for it.
Approval of Climate Transformation Alliance membership and appointment of board representative.
I'd like to appoint Blake as being our climate czar.
I thought Scott wanted to do it.
Scott wanted to do it.
Oh, did you, Scott? I thought maybe Blake volunteered
That's why
on
he
his
left
way
you.
out the door.
That would be the first time that happened.
That happened to me once.
Let's say who's not here.
You got voted president while you were out.
Yeah, I also got voted hearing officer on something that totally destroyed my summer.
You volunteered for that one.
No, I didn't.
Try to get me to do it. I said no.
All right, so it's Blake or is it you, Scott? Okay, climate czar.
How often do they meet? And no schedule or anything?
I'm sorry?
This group, how often do they meet? Is there any schedule?
Yeah, there is a schedule, and I think, Dan, you might know the number. I think there's 21 or 25 entities
There's so
that are
lot.
part of it. There's a lot.
Yeah.
We were one of the last.
So I think the request here is, so remind me, does this group ask for any money to be a member?
It doesn't appear so. It looks like they operate off the donations. So I would imagine perhaps after Director Wilson attends some of the meetings, there may be a future request for the agency to contribute to the cause.
Okay, but it's not like they have staff or anything, I don't think. I don't think there's a lot for them to spend money on. I think it's more of a group that gets together to communicate. Okay. So I think the question is, are we as board okay with you as the GM telling that group that we'd like to be a member, and then if so, are we comfortable appointing Director Wilson to be our person who goes to the meetings?
I want Blake.
Thanks, Dale.
So to refine that just a little bit, based on the April meeting, I felt like we had direction to proceed with membership. So today's action is really kind of the board action to approve the charter, because we'll need to have President Wilkins sign the charter as a member agency, and then appoint Director Wilson as the board representative.
Okay. The charter basically says we're willing to get together and talk about this stuff.
Correct.
Right. It doesn't commit us to anything.
Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
There's also funding arrangement information on page 7.
Right. Members shall make voluntary in-kind contributions to the CTA to fund its operations.
It sounds like that could be money out of Scott's pocket then.
Could be.
Donate $1 for a fucking meeting. Okay. So I guess the requested action would be to authorize the board president to sign the CTA charter and to appoint Director Wilson as our representative. Is that right?
Just so these things are clear, and I guess, we'd be authorizing Scott to receive a day of service from TTSA as a representative at scheduled meetings of the CTA as well.
Yes.
I think that's
Well, I will donate that.
reasonable if you're.
No, that's fine. Okay. No, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're correct.
Good point.
Okay, anyone else
Just
want
to
to
be
be
clear,
clear?
it sounds like there's a paycheck involved.
Not for me, you did.
I got more money than I can spend.
Okay, nice. Let's get together for lunch. All right. Okay. So, again, would anyone like to make a motion to authorize the board president to sign the CTA charter and to appoint Director Wilson to be our representative?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Cox, seconded by Director Smeltzer. There's no further discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. Okay, next, department reports. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. Morning, President Wilkins, Board of Directors. The Operations Department report for the month of June. All plant waste discharge requirements were met for the month. The plant performed well through the month. We're continuing to monitor the sodium hypochlorite project for the final effluent disinfection. One highlight note, we have done set the chlorine system up so we can chlorinate the filter header, and we've done a super chlorination on one of our filters, which we used to do with our chlorine solution, and it worked well with the system that we have in place. So that was one of the things we needed to test and monitor, and we have done that, and it worked out well.
Question, how much chlorine was involved in this?
We used about 600 gallons of chlorine for the super disinfection on the filter.
That's something like that like once a year? Or?
It's once to twice a year for the filter.
Okay.
And then also we continue to implement the WIM system. It's being utilized and the configuration is still ongoing. For laboratory, the staff performed the necessary laboratory testing for the month. Lab staff in the process of implementing the quality system implements the lab assessment was completed on May 31st. The report has been received and corrective actions are in process. You can see here that there's 24 pending corrective actions, which is a relatively high number for the lab, but those all came out of that assessment for us to become T&I compliant. Wilhelm's implementation has been completed. Any questions for the operations department?
What would be an example of the 24 that are pending?
My understanding from Jason, from the laboratory director, is they're relatively minor. There are a lot of very minor things that came up through the report that just were little things that were missed about how to implement certain quality factors that we weren't doing. He would explain it a lot better than I can, but there was no significant findings of things that needed to be corrected. They're all very just minor things. There just happen to be a lot of them.
Okay.
And again, this is to become that the T&I compliance for the lab. And we're ahead of schedule on getting that implemented and taken care of. So we're doing really good on that front.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Who's next?
Good morning, President Wilkins and board. So for the month of June, the maintenance department did provide project support for the digestion improvements project, which is now the boiler replacement project. So I apologize I didn't make it into the report. The sodium hypochlorite project, the SCADA IT master plan implementation is still ongoing. We continue to work on the CMMS project as it relates to the warehouse and more improvements with our PM programs. We continue to offer support for the LIMS project and the 2023 roof repair project. Notable plant maintenance activities for the month. We're pretty busy. We rebuilt the Stripper 58 actuator. We replaced the B&R influent Profibus hub, which was causing us quite a few problems over the past several years. So that's been rectified. We installed an outdoor air quality monitor, which allows us to see what the plant air quality is here directly at the plant through Purple Air, which is kind of nice, especially with the smoke and things that we've had in the past couple of years. So it's a notable improvement for help with our safety program. We also installed the injection quill for the filter influent chlorination, as Steve noted earlier. Fortunately, that testing went very well. So we also dismantled a temporary outdoor tent structure up at AWT. Some of you have been here for a while are probably very familiar with that. Others, unfortunately, missed the, we affectionately call it the circus tent out there by AWT. It is gone. We completed some floor and paint over at the new IT office, and IT staff have moved into the new IT office. They're still rearranging as we speak. Did some fabrication work as well to support these moves, and installed a new concrete pad and mailbox in front of the admin building. Hopefully we can get some beneficial use shortly. And then we've got some new light bars on several agency vehicles. You might see those parked out front. And we did some brush and debris removal around the plant. And work orders continue to remain about stable over the past several months. Got a few pictures here as well. Just some work on some of the fabrication there. You can see one of our staff members is becoming very proficient in fabrication, so he was able to make some benches for us and do some repair on an intermediate bearing assembly. Just one of the pictures of the IT shopper model. That is the old E&I shop, so it's looking pretty good. And here's some pictures of us doing some work on the admin mailbox at the front and the concrete work to get that thing installed, of course. Pictures of the light bars, and then some a picture of some of the roof repair project support, moving cameras and things like that to support that project.
Can I ask a question just on the roofs? You know, we've been working on roof repair recently. How far along are we? Just so we've got, you know, I don't know how many buildings here, but that, you know, the roofs have reached their useful lives. We've been doing active repair work on them. Are we like a quarter of the way through, a half of the way through?
Never ends.
I think Aaron would be the.
What's that?
Aaron, do you want to try to cover that?
Yeah. So we've identified areas of concern, that being critical infrastructure, that if the roof failed would be catastrophic for the plant. We replace those. And then this project, what it does is we identified some that the roof is failing, and we went after that. At this point in time, I would say, get back to the board with a more accurate number, but I'd say we're probably about 70% done.
Okay.
But I can follow up next.
No, that's okay. I was just trying to get a sense of it. And I don't think we're doing, for the most part, we're not doing complete tear-offs and complete re-roofs, or are we?
Yeah, we are. So what we currently have is it's a polyurethane foam that they initially put on, and then it appears, and we tried to confirm this through records, but this is my assumption, that the polyurethane roof failed.
Okay.
And then they put a EPDM rubber over it. The old EPDM roof is not reinforced, and that's what's failing right now.
Okay.
Okay. Throughout the years, the maintenance department has, typically done small patches and repairs, but there's so many issues now that the engineering department has taken on the wholesale replacement of these things. It just doesn't make sense to continue patching these areas that continually live.
I think that's what I was trying to get at, is how much are we just doing complete re-roofs versus fixing leaks.
Yeah, they've been moving along year after year on these roof repair projects.
Right.
We continue to offer support for that. So.
Yeah, I know we've had various roof projects come in front of us, like one a year for a number of years now.
And mind you that some of those roof sections were vintage 1970s, right? So
right.
We've gotten our money's worth. So on the big project where we're doing these monolithic re-roofings, they've really needed it, as opposed to some of these one-off areas where we have a small pinhole leak. Those kind of things we can easily handle on with our own stuff.
Right. Great. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt, Paul.
Oh, no problem at all. So just one of our staff members working on the Profibus communication hub. And to the right, you might be interested to note that is the chlorine injection quill that he was referring to, Mike Peak was referring to earlier for the superchlorination. That's how the injection is done prior to the filters, right there. So, okay.
questions for Paul?
I don't know if it was for Paul or not. When I drove in, kind of where the temporary sodium hypochlorite, there's a large quantity of stuff stacked up there. What project is?
So that
what is that stuff?
That's the roof repair project. Actually, they're staging all of the materials. You're talking about under the tree at the turnabout there.
It's a bunch of looks like panels wrapped in plastic.
Yeah, that's for the roof repair project.
Okay.
That's commencing as we speak.
Okay.
And Aaron, that's the DenSec, is that correct?
The what's wrapped in the white plastic is like, they term that the polyiso, or the 2 layers of insulation.
Structural support below the PDM that's going in.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to go next.
So yeah, okay, we're gonna have Aaron cover that training.
So current projects under construction is the chlorine scrubber improvements project. This is for the past month. Projects in bid phase are the roof repair project and the TRI digital scanning project. Projects in development, the boiler replacement project, the 2022 filter condition assessment project, the sodium hypochlorite disinfection full-scale project, and the TRI Alpine Meadows to Olympic Valley rehab project.
Crystal?
Just a couple of key items. We wrapped up the budget in June, and it got approved. And then for the finance team, I just wanted to commend them. We are short-staffed, 1 person. It's been very, very busy in there right now. I also want to thank Vicki for her presentation, and also bring up that Michelle and Dawn pulled some information together very quickly as well for the health benefits presentation. And then the billing department, we got all of the rates updated for the billing, and that went off without any hitches, and so Celeste worked very hard on that. Then just basically a lot of thanking. I want to thank Kaylee for not only doing her responsibilities, but also covering for Rochelle while Rochelle is out. It is the second time that she has learned something very quickly and was able to cover. And then the other item I wanted to make note of is that we completed this week, with Michelle and Dawn's help, the transfer of a total of $25,750,000 to CalClass from LAIF. We did leave some in the checking to cover payroll and AP, and kind of we left more in there than needed, just to make sure the transfers in and out of CalClass goes seamlessly like it does with LAIF. So that's it for us.
Hey, I can comment on that. I just want to thank you for doing that. I think just slides under the rug, but CalClass is returning, I think, 2 percentage points more than LAIF, and on $25 million. That's, how much per month in additional interest earnings? Can you do that in your head?
Yeah, no, but we know that you can. If you want to round up to 26 million, because it's 25,750,000. There was a little bit of a delay on there. We were waiting for Richard to return because we did not want to go through the process of Michael Ismail on the investment policy, and getting him set up, and then removing him, and then adding Richard. So that's all working as of yesterday.
Yeah, that's great. It's not. I didn't do the math, but it's significant additional revenue for the district in those higher interest earnings. So good job.
I'd have to pay for a title report.
Richard.
Sorry. It's funny.
First, I want to say I'm glad to be back, and I wanted to thank Michael for stepping in during my absence. Really appreciate all of his efforts, as well as all the other staff that seemed to make it seamless, which was great. So good coming back and trying to get back up to speed. So we did re-kick off with HDR on our connection fee study, so we've got that moving again. Again, software programs and CIP projects, which we already touched on. I emailed all the directors, but the land exchange, the board at the Truckee Tahoe Airport District approved the land exchange, so we're in the next steps of actually making those exchanges, and we'll be working to schedule a meeting with Rob over there and his team, and as well as with the town of Truckee and Nevada County to get a good path forward. The River Revitalization Steering Committee has set a first meeting date, so I'll be attending that coming up. And then we continue to have a consultant working with some staff and leadership on skill building and team building. And then, as we've mentioned, sodium hypochlorite still is working extremely well. So we're continuing to move forward with plans and designs on a permanent station for the future. So,
thanks, Richard. Any questions?
One last item. So we're right about a year since we had the fire on our property, so I asked Rochelle to reach out to the district attorney's office just to find out what the disposition was, because we did do the paperwork for restitution. So the individual has made an agreement with the court, and they're going through that process. She has another court date here in September, so we may know more about what, if any, restitution may be awarded to us. So let me know when we get that information.
Okay. Thanks, Richard. Any questions or comments for Richard? If not, next is opportunity for any member of the board to make any comments for the benefit of the agency.
No, I'm good. I got a comment, not really a comment, it's a question. A few months ago, maybe several months ago, we discussed in detail about some renovations of our curb appeal, which included new signage, doing away with the pond out there, and reshaping and refocusing on our curb appeal coming into the plant or into the office here. Where are we on that, Richard? Are we kind of tabling that, or?
No, it hasn't been tabled. Engineering's been working on that. We moved the design to in-house with Jay and Aaron's group. I'm already transitioning. So one of our engineers in-house is working on that. We were hoping to have a sketch for the next board meeting. Since we brought up the topic, one thing we kind of want to know is interest in getting feedback on that design. We had some preliminary designs done by a landscape architect. Previously, there was a desire to do artificial turf. We're looking at also expanding parking spaces. So it kind of started off with a simple landscape, and now it's kind of mushroomed into trying to address some parking issues, as well as you see the curb from all the snow removal is just beat up, the asphalt's beat up out there, so we've expanded that to more. So it's taking a little bit longer to get that scope of work together. So we probably have a preliminary kind of ideal sketch for the next board meeting, get some input from the board on, yeah, we like that idea, continue to move forward with that. So we can kind of hit a scope of work lock so that then they can take it and develop a final bid set to move it forward.
So obviously we're running out of daylight to have any kind of execution on any kind of a project for this summer?
Yeah, realistically it'll be next construction season, but we'll work to keep it presentable until then.
Okay.
So, speaking of signage, we're also I've been working with Andrew on signage for the road coming in and all of our open space items, now that we can actually dig holes in the dirt and set signs. So keep you posted on the progress on that. We're just working on final verbiage, then working with Paul to get signs ordered and installed, and all legal requirements for spacing and
I got one other question. As far as any of the reclaiming of this section over here of the old water treatment ion exchange and that big atom smasher or whatever, all that equipment out there and those big tanks, and are we addressing any time frame for starting to reclaim that area?
That is all addressed in the master plan, the projects that were within the master plan. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is none of the projects that we have in the queue right now are addressing that.
So it just sets?
Yeah, it sets, and then like we did one project where in-house staff demoed some of the obsolete stuff. We just have to make sure we have lead-based paint issues and asbestos issues, so we have to kind of navigate what we can safely remove or what's better suited for a demolition contractor as part of the bigger project.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Dale. Do you have anything?
Good.
Scott?
Last thing I want to say is, Richard, I commend you in particular and staff because the meeting that you held yesterday was very eye-opening for me, and I probably would say some of the other board members. And I think that's the type of leadership that is going to go a long way. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Blake?
Yeah, again, I think we communicated to the staff that was here that we appreciated their participation in the discussion regarding the health benefits, and just reiterate that we want to hear from them. So that's great. And then I think Jay's not one to take center stage, but I know he's given a retirement date, and I can't remember what it was and whether we're going to see him in August or not. And, okay, I'm hoping that there'll be some formal recognition and appreciation.
And I want to say a few words to it. So that'll be August. I'll still get it.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Good on you. Good. Okay. Glad that there's a plan.
I don't know what we're going to do without you.
Thanks.
A lot of institutional knowledge there.
Yeah.
A lot of history in there.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got, let's see, I went to the Airport District Board meeting as representing TTSA when they met a day or two after our last meeting, basically reiterating our interest in following through with the land exchange agreement. Ultimately, their board approved that on, as Richard mentioned, on a 4-1 vote. Richard was there as well. So I'm glad that's moving forward. Richard mentioned that to get the mechanics of that deal done, there's basically some technical work that has to happen that would involve Nevada County, because Nevada County and the town of Truckee, because they're the folks who approve new property lines. So that's part of my job duties at the town, is to, when that's going on, is to be involved with that. So I would likely be attending one of the early meetings that Richard's trying to put together, not representing TTSA, but representing the town, just to make sure everyone's on the same page in terms of how the mechanics of that deal get finalized. So I just wanted you all to know that. And then I guess I had a question. You guys mentioned, specifically I'm looking at Dave and Dale, the Moonshine Inc. article, and you were kind of looking at me making comments about the article suggesting that the whole thing was a done deal. I was quoted in that article. I was
Well, you were tempering what they were saying.
I wanted to bring that up because I was trying to represent what I thought. I was trying to represent the board, and I just wanted to ask if you guys had any concerns about any of the quotes I had in there as not being representative.
No, I was referring to somebody that was looking for free land, and somebody else was saying, well, the town of Truckee doesn't have any money to do any of this. And
yeah, okay.
It was
okay. I just wanted to throw that question on the table. I try to make sure that I'm representing the board appropriately in these settings. And this is an interesting one because there's differences of opinion on the board, I think, on this. So I'm trying to hit the straight and narrow on it. And if you guys are thinking I'm not doing that, feel free to let me know.
Thanks for mentioning that, Dan.
Okay. Any other comments for the good of the order? Seeing none, thanks. We are adjourned. Just one other thing. At our next board meeting, Vicki brought to my attention that when we hired Richard to be our GM, we put a commitment in there to do a 6-month evaluation. It's been about 8 or 9 months now. So
that's a good sign.
Yeah. So I asked, suggest that we have an item on our next board agenda. It would be general manager evaluation.
Closed session.
Closed session.
Yep. Sounds good.
If I do.